Hey everybody, Midnight Asshole here. Welcome back to the guide for how to Motorsport Manager. Nice door. Nice door. Door tries to open itself while recording. Go figure. We're here today for part two of this guide on how to mod in Motorsport Manager. So, last time was just a general overview of everything that you should have that you should try to have or use when you're going to mod Motorsport Manager. In this part, we're going to go over in more depth as to how certain things work when trying to mod the game. So, as you can see right here, is the Motorsport database editor. This is something that I showed off. That I mentioned. Briefly mentioned in the first episode in the overview guide, and now here is the actual database editor in its true form. So as you can see, these are all the database files that you can edit. You have assistants, which is the assistant that you get, the assistant that emails you things throughout the game. You have stuff related to buildings at your HQ, stuff related to buildings. You have you can change your chairman's name if you want to do that. Championships is related to, championships is related to, the acronym, and you can see things like promotions. Like, a lot of promotions, is it choosable, what logos they use, things like which race locations they go to, which is in number form here, the rules that are allowed, the rules that are restricted, and other things as well, as you can see here. So yeah, that's what this file looks like. You have things like climate, things like the chassis. Things like the chassis you can look at, which is things like the chassis that you can look at. What else? The driver. If you want to change driver names, you can see them. If you want to change driver names, or heck, even their nationality, or birthdays or things like that, you can do that right here if you want. You can see like Harry Chapman, Nina Zoltz. These are the drivers that are the fake Hamilton, the fake Rosberg in the game, and things like that. You can see other stats. Like how much they're getting, like when their contract started, their qualifying, any bonuses they get, any bonuses they would have on their starting contract. If they're a pay driver or not? Their driving style. Their driving numbers, even though it doesn't show, you can see their driving numbers here, which is actually pretty cool to note. Which is actually pretty cool to see that it does in fact show that, even though you never get to see that in game. Things like the amount of races they've done, and other stats as well that would be interesting for you. That would be interesting for you to see, including their peak age, which is interesting. You can see their peak age and when they would start to decline. So things like that as well. Anyways, there's that as well, and other things as well that you can see here. All these databases can be edited and changed on the database editor, and then once you make said database, you can choose to save the file. You can choose to save the file somewhere. You can choose to save the file somewhere on your computer, and then you can bring them into the modding database, the modding folder in your Motorsport Manager game file location, and just put it in the database folder, in the modding folder, and then you're all set to try testing it. So that is a brief summary. That's the general summary of how this works. And I guess, for example, I'll just make like a quick random database on something. So, what do I want to do? I guess actually I'll go over the three main things that I would recommend Again, nice door. Nice door. My door doesn't shut correct. My door isn't fully shut, and it's slowly creaking open for some reason. Anyways, back to the actual thing that I'm supposed to be talking about. Let's say for I guess the three main things I would recommend looking into if you want to like change anything would be first the teams. So let me make this slightly bigger for you guys to see. Looking at the team files, this is what they look like. This is what it looks like. For context, when looking at this, looking at this, the color matches the amount of the color. Like if you were to go over to the team colors file, you would just if you want to change the team colors as well, you need to match the this number from the color to the correct team. So as you can see, Scuderia Rossini is team 4. It's color 4 on this list. So if you were to go over to colors and go to 4, you would see the colors that Rossini would have. So you can see like the staff colors for the helmet, what colors they would look like when you select one of their cars in the middle of the race and things like that. So if you want to change the team colors, it's recommended. The main things I would recommend changing would be the staff primary, the colors for the staff. The colors for the staff right here, staff primary, staff secondary. The UI, I would recommend changing the UI color. I would recommend changing the UI colors so that way they highlight the same. They'll be the same color as whatever color you change them to. And then in terms of the car colors, and then if you look in terms of the color codes, you can see there's quite a lot of car colors. You can also see different colors for the sponsors, for the different sponsors as well. However, in terms of stuff for the actual car, like if you want to change the color of the car to be something different, like say you want Scuderia Rossini to be black or something, to be all black or something like that, or you want the fake Mercedes to be all black. All you would need to do is change the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, and the trim colors to whatever you want. So if you want the car to look different, if you want a specific team's car to look different in game, primary, secondary, tertiary, and trim colors are what you need to change. Livery colors 1 through 10 do not matter, as well as light sponsor colors 2, 3, 4, as well as the extra sponsor light and dark sponsor colors. Only the first one counts for light and dark sponsor, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, that is what. If you want to change team colors, just remember these 4 right here, the UI and the staff colors are the things you should change for team colors. If the game crashes, then that means you probably did something wrong. So just make sure. Also, they go by a color. Also, I should have mentioned this, obviously, if you couldn't see it already on the staff colors. The colors are based off a color code index, are based off the hex code. So, hypothetically, say you want the color code to be gold or something. You can do that. Let's say you want the color code to be gold. Just search the gold color code. And then you should be able to find it. So yeah, right here. FFD700 is the color code for gold. So if you want a car to have a gold color, all you would need to do is just copy the number, copy that number, that hex color code in, and then just place it in wherever you want. And then the color should reflect that in game, as long as you put it in correctly. Next thing to mention would be I thought I'd mention that with color since it's on here. It's one of the first things you'll see on here. Next thing to mention, anyway, back to teams. The main things you need to do if you're going to change the team, if you're going to change the way a team looks, then there are a couple main things to mention. First would be the team names. So you can see Steinman Motorsport right here. If you want to change the name to reflect whatever you want it to be, I would recommend doing this. Change the team name. You need to change the team name, and then you need to change the short name as well. You need to change the short name so that way it actually makes sense. Because the short name will be so like if your driver talks on the if your driver is like talking on the radio saying like they can't get past whatever car's in front of them, the short name is something that will get mentioned. You also see this in news reports from time to time as well. Like you also see this in the news. It's also be reflected in the game when the team is mentioned by by one of those random emails or things like that. Location ID is a bit tricky. Location ID is the ID will represent whatever flag is next to the team. So Steinman is Germany. This location ID is the one for Germany. As you can see, it's different from the one from the UK. So you would need to pay very close attention to that. You can change the physical name of the location, but that won't change the location ID. You need to do that yourself manually. So any of these locations, you should probably look at these location IDs if you need that. Alternatively, if you're having trouble finding the correct location ID you want, I believe you can find some of them over in the driver's database folder. Another thing is also you can see the color code right here. You can see the color number, which we just went over in team colors. Livery is correspond to liveries that are in the game, but I wouldn't mess with that because that could cause some issues. So I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you're paying very close attention to what you're doing. And then you can see other things like budget and offset things. Most of these are not expected. Most of these are not recommended, but but you can look at them if you want to. All right, and sorry about the random cut there. I had to go check something. But anyways, we're good now. And just to quickly finish up on what I was talking about with the location ID. If you need to find location IDs, I believe here. No. Okay, no, never mind. I thought for some reason I thought it was here, but I guess it's not here. So, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so I think... Okay, I know where it is. Yeah, here. Here, if you need to look at... Okay, so you can see countries here. No, that doesn't help. I know there's something... Oh, yeah, okay, here. So if you need our default database editor, database file, it's right here if you need it. So that was something I should have mentioned. It's right here. Anyways, what was I going? Oh yeah, right. Now I know what I was going to talk about. Yeah, next, of course. So team. We went over teams. We went over team colors. Team principles is something that is mentioned in the guide that George Shifted 78 did on Steam regarding how to make another team in the game. You should be able to do that. You can do that here. You can do that here as well. What you would need to do is you would need to go down to the next line, fill out all this information that you need to do. Make sure the team has colors, make sure they have team principals and the correct staff that they need, and things like that. And you would also need to go to here, which is default parts. I briefly mentioned what this was. So as you can see you can see engines here for different teams and things like that. You can see TS refers to top speed, which would be the engine. So just to go in order, TS. Well, actually, it says it here on the left. But anyways, for a quick reference, TS's engine. ACC is acceleration, which is the gearbox. DEC is the deceleration, which is the brakes. HSC is the rear wing. MSC is the suspension, and LSC is the front wing. Reliability will be the base reliability of the part that each team starts with if you were to pick them in the game. The condition is not important. The condition is not important as far as I'm aware. Neither is the age. Performance improvability will be how much performance the default engine or whatever part you're trying to change will have when you select it. So in this case, the best engine on the grid, this Dynamin engine right here at 980, it's got a performance improvability of 5. So that means if you were to load into the game as Dynamin and you were to want to improve the engine performance, this specific engine right here can get 5 extra points of performance added onto it, and this engine here will get 3. And it goes so on and so forth all the way down. You can make sure you're matching the team number to the correct team. So team 2, as you can see here. So as you can see here, you need to keep in mind that the first line counts as one line. So Team 2 would be Team 2 is technically Steinman because this is line 1, and they have to account for that when the game reads the data. So in that term, what you would need to do when doing default parts is that whichever is the easy way to tell is to look at this file here for the teams. Go by the color number and then add 1, and then add 1 extra number onto it, and then that will show you where the part will go to. Or you can just go in order. So Team 2 is Steinemann, that is the first one. And Panther is second, Windsor is third, Panther is 3, Windsor is 4, Rossini is 5, Catano is 6, and so on and so on. Anyways, that aside, the other major things to mention is the championship here. Say, if you don't like the way the default rules are, or the default starting races, the default locations are for the game, then you can change that you can actually change that fairly easily, and you can change a few other things as well. So, say for instance you don't like some of these rules, you can change that. You could change that. However, there is a catch. As you can see here, there's no database file that shows the rules. So if you want to change something like the rules, you would need to use the Unity asset. You need to use the Unity asset bundle manager to figure that out. To figure out which rule is which number. So that way you don't accidentally make a mistake. So that way you don't make a mistake and add something that shouldn't be there. Same thing applies to restricted rules. If for some reason there's a restricted rule, which usually the restricted rules, if there's a restricted rule that you want to add to a series, go ahead and just remove that number from this list. But the problem is that some of the restricted rules apply to other series, so it could screw things up if you mess with those too much. Same thing it goes also with team. Also, again, this is another folder that you would need another file you would need to change if you want to add another team. So as you can see here, you can see teams 2 through 11 are in the World Motorsport Championship. So if you want to add a 12th and 13th team to this, you need to add a 64th and 60. You need to add a 64th and 65th team, and then add it to this series, and then add it to this part right here. And also, prize fund is right here as well. So if you increase the prize fund, that'll increase the amount of prize money you get at the end of the season as well. However, that will not change, and the game will just calculate. The game will still calculate correctly how much money each team should get. So don't worry about that. And that should be all that you should really change when doing this. You can see other things. You can see other things here, but I wouldn't recommend messing with these things because most of these won't change anything. So I wouldn't worry about that. So I wouldn't worry about changing any of these things for the time being. There is one other file that I could recommend changing if you want to have some interesting things happen. That would be right here, sponsors. Say for instance you think the sponsors are not paying enough money and you want to change that. You can do that right here. You can see every single sponsor that is in the game. You can see every single sponsor that's available in the game right here. And what you need to do if you want to change stuff like that, you can do a couple things. You can see things like prestige. Prestige is related to how many stars in the sponsorship area you need to be able to to have a chance of getting that sponsor, to have that sponsor available on your car, to get that sponsor on your car at least. So if it's a 5, you need 5 stars to be able to have a chance of getting that sponsor available for one of those slots, and things like that. Sponsor slot. Oh, and you can also sponsor slot same thing applies to sponsor slots. So you can see. So when you're in the sponsor section, you can see like slot 4 is available or something like that. That correlates to this number here. So things like that. Then you can see other things as well. Team sponsoring is not important. Do not mess with that because that could screw some things up with the AI team. So I wouldn't recommend touching this column here. Next, the other main thing to look at would be this. You can see upfront value. You can see upfront value here. So upfront value goes by the million. If it says it goes by million, any value related to the actual money, from per race, to upfront value, it minus home bonus, it goes by, so per race and upfront value go by millions. So if it's a 3, that means 3 million. If it's a 3, that means 3 million. If it's a 1, that's 1 million. If it's like a decimal, if it's 0.5 or whatever, that means it's if it's 0.5, that's half a million. It goes by that, so you can see things like that. So if you want to change sponsorships or things like that, you can do that right here. You can see, so upfront value will mean the sponsor will give you an upfront payment when you sign them. Per race is how much money you'll get. Is how much you'll get from each sponsor if you sign them and you just go to a race and come back. So 0.4 means that this sponsor gives $400,000 per each race weekend. And you can also see target sponsors here. So you can see the bonus difficulty here, which I honestly don't remember what that does. You can also see bonus target, which is the position that you would need to finish to get said bonus. And you can see the bonus amount only applies to target sponsors. So if a sponsor requires a target position, these three new numbers apply to it. You can also see home bonus here for any sponsors that would have a home bonus that have a home race bonus applied to them as well. So yeah, that is. Then the only other things to mention would be make sure you change the deal total. Make sure you change the deal total so that way it's correct. If you don't change the deal total, that could cause some issues. So make sure when you're doing any of these calculations that you calculate the amount that the deal gives you in terms of money correctly. So say if you do an upfront bonus like this one, the upfront bonus is 1.5, then actually let's go back to this one. If the upfront value is 3 million and then the upfront value is 3 million, and then the per race is 0.4, you need to calculate that. So as you can see, the deal total is 7 by doing that, because the deal length is 10, so 0.4 times 10 is 4 million, and then you have the upfront of 3, so that equals 7. And the deal value is 7 because it goes by how much money you would get over the course of the deal divided by the race length, divided by the deal length. So money by deal length, and you get the deal value. There you go. Also, if you want to have the sponsors refresh faster, change the offer time to be 1 on every single sponsor so they expire. You'll get new deals every single race if you choose to go with that. Although I wouldn't recommend doing that because that could cause some issues, so don't do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that. And then everything beyond that is kind of pointless. It's kind of irrelevant. Like, offer cooldown and starting cooldown are related to how many times you can, how long you have to wait how many days you'll have to wait to get that sponsor again, and things like that. And then everything after that is irrelevant because that is related to something else entirely. So there you go. But with that is actually everything related that's everything related I want to talk about regarding the database editor right now. Because the main things that you would want to change would be championships, so you can have different races, so you can start with different races and different rules. Different races, different rules, and change the amount of money, the prize pot, the prize fund, the amount of prize money you could potentially get at the end of the season. Default parts, if you want to change the starting performance of any of the teams, so that way you could have mixed up scenarios. Like you could, like, say for instance you're watching this video in 2020 and Ferrari is doing terribly. You could change it so Ferrari has the worst engine on the grid and things like that. And then you have drivers. So if you want to change driver names and how many points they have in each stat, you can do that here. Same thing applies to engineers, except you can also change their race perks, but I wouldn't recommend messing with that at the moment. Mechanics is the same story, but again, that you don't need engineers and race mechanics are not something it's not something you should mess with, because you can get enough in the base game. Parts suppliers and components, while interesting, you don't need to mess with those either. Parts themselves, you don't need to mess with. Personality traits, same thing. The main things you should probably try messing with just to see what you can come up with for ideas would be sponsors, team colors, teams, default parts, and championship. Those are and drivers. Those are the main things I would recommend changing via the database editor. Then all you would need to do, if you've made some changes, you would need to just save the file. I would recommend saving the file somewhere where you'll find it. So in this case, say you save it to your desktop or something like that. You save the file there. Then what you would need to do, you need to drag the file to here, to wherever you need to go into your file explorer, and then find wherever, and then go to something like this. In my case, I had the I have my Motorsport Manager file stored here. So in my case, it would be here. You go to Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, and then go to Motorsport Manager. Then what you need to do, you go to Data, you go to Modding, and then go to Database. And then you can and then any files you've changed, like you can see here, would go here. So that way you can when you load it into Motorsport Manager, you can go to the workshop, and then you can go to the part where you can test your own mods and see these files there. Just make sure they're the correct type. If it's a database file, it must be a text file. Otherwise, it will not be read correctly. So you need to make sure that you do that. You need to make sure you do that so that way everything works correctly. And you can also see some other things that you could do here. Like if you want to change things like video, you need to do that here. If you want to change things like videos in game, you could do that here. Change any models, you could do that here. Logos is right here if you ever want to change. So the logos is there as well. Images are here for anything else. And designs data for the single-seater data file, which you can see that here in the background. I will briefly go over this right now just to explain just to show you what this looks like. As you can see, it's an XML file. It'll be an XML file, and you can see things like this. And you can see here. This file contains the data used by the simulation to control the car speeds. All time costs are in second per lap. The start of this file contains generic data used by the game, no matter how long the race session is. At the end, contains specific lap and performance data for short, medium, and long race lengths. You can set is active to false on any performance impact to disable its impact on the simulation, which is very good if you're trying to test like car parts or how changing the default performance of cars would affect things like that. And the top tip, and also by the way, all this is just here. This is just here. This is not me putting this in. This is here by default. And the top tip is turning off everything apart from the part you're tweaking is really helpful if you're trying to test something. And just like they said, the general simulation data right here for race length, for the general simulation data, all the stuff right here that I highlighted is stuff that you cannot change. So you cannot make the race length longer or shorter, no matter what you try doing. So if you wanted to be clever, sorry, you can't do that. It just won't happen. But everything else below that is stuff that you could theoretically change, and it's stuff that you could theoretically change to your liking to make things different. And there are useful explanations next to each bit that give you a general explanation as to what each thing does. But I will go over this file in the next part. So, with that is everything I wanted to explain. For today, and I hope this gave you a better insight into stuff that you can do stuff you can mod in Motorsport Manager. And specifically for this video, the link to the database editor and the guide to add a 11th and 12th team to the series will be available in the description below for anybody who wants to try doing any of these changes yourself. I wish you the best of luck. Be careful. Make sure you save backups of things like this. And of course, let me know below if you think I did a good job explaining everything, or if I suck and I should never record videos again. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.